And greetings there, everyone. It is your boy Warcraft. Yeah, I'm Warcraft in the flesh. It's GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. I'm just so eager to jump into the content that I'm cutting out half the words. All right, on our last episode, we ran through the starting zone in Warcraft Classic with a Tauren based his name was Earth Fury. I think Moln Earth Fury is the character that I based him on, who is a powerful shaman. But our shaman is just getting started in the world, and he did the Camp Narache questline. We also are going back in between each episode and looking at some weird content, such as Dungeons and Dragons World of Warcraft setting. And in this setting, we have been reading a book in the voice of Bran Bronzebeard called Lands of Mystery. The last thing that we talked about was the Broken Isles. Even though it didn't exist quite yet, it had been created for Warcraft 3. So we read kind of about this primordial, or maybe not primordial, but a prototypical Broken Isle. So not the way that we know it now. And maybe some things have changed in the lore to make it the way it is now. Or maybe there's a reason why this stuff is not officially canon. Stay a while and listen as we continue exploring the lands of the South Seas with the Eye. And I'm going to take it to mean, I believe the Eye must be referring to the Maelstrom. Let's find out. The capital is Nazjatar, so also cool that Nazjatar is something that they already had their head set on making way before Battle for Azeroth. Says it's an unknown population, but perhaps as many as 80,000, a ton of Naga and Makrura. It's led by Queen Ajara, and it's mostly Naga down there, so let's read a little bit about it. When the Well of Eternity went boom at the end of the War of the Ancients, it created the Maelstrom, a magic storm that lashes the waves with wind, rain, and raw magic power. It creates a great vortex beneath the waves, which draws in ships and creatures foolish enough to get too close. The center of the Maelstrom is called the Eye. There's not much on the surface besides an ancient whirl of arcane energy, but beneath the waves, on the ocean's floor, is the capital of both the Naga and Makrura civilizations, as well as giant sea monsters, underwater volcanoes, and thermal vents. I write all this down, then I look at what I've written and think, there's no way they can expect me to go down there? And no one did. If I decided not to swim down to the bottom of the Eye, no one would ridicule me or question my bravery. In fact, they'd probably praise my wisdom. We dwarves are very dangerous on land, but swimming in a turbulent sea, I'd literally be out of my element. Yet there were things to learn in the depths, cultures to explore, and information to glean. So for my people, for Ironforge and the dwarves of Cosmodon, I resolved to put my mettle to the test. Are you getting all this, Magni? Yeah, man, boy, brother deserves a raise. Hook him up, Magni. Griffin wasn't going to do me any good in the Eye, so I left him with the most trustworthy goblin I could find in the Broken Isles. Some people might question my sanity for delving into the Eye, but I'm not completely stupid. You don't want to go into a place like this unprepared. I bought a magic helmet to allow me to breathe and swim easily underwater. The other option was to buy a goblin-made contraption that claimed to do the same thing. Not even an option, really. Just in case, I also stocked up on potions that would allow me to breathe underwater, and some that would turn me invisible for those quick escapes. I bought a pair of boots that would allow me to teleport out of there if things got too crazy. The receipts are in the attached envelope. I expect to be reimbursed. Thus, suitably outfitted, I bid Griffin goodbye and dove into the water around the Broken Isles, heading northwest. Hopefully that helmet also protects them from the intense pressure. People and culture. Naga control the Eye, dominating it from their capital city of Nazjatar. They are serpent-like humanoids resembling snakes from the waist down. They have snake tails, and reptilian humanoids from the waist up. They wear bandoliers and belts to hold weapons and spell components, but little other clothing. Many, especially the females, wear jewelry, much of it magic. Naga men are stronger and larger than females and usually serve as the warrior caste. Two particularly dangerous types of Naga frontline soldiers are myrmidons and royal guard. Naga women tend to be smarter and have an affinity for magic. They serve as spellcasters. Due to their superior mental acuity, Naga culture values females more than males, and females tend to hold positions of leadership. A queen, the legendary Ashara, yes, that Ashara, still rules her fallen people. Makrua also inhabit the Eye. They are lobster-like humanoids, much more primitive than the Naga. They speak Nurglish, and perhaps were the first to use that tongue, and construct tools and jewelry out of rocks, seashells, and driftwood. They have a connection with the elemental forces of the sea, and some of them are strong spellcasters. The Makrua hate the Naga and are their sworn enemies. Unfortunately, they don't seem to care much for outsiders of any kind, no matter their intentions. I'm trying to think if there's very many quest lines that you actually work with or aid Makrua. Sure, there's a few quests, but I can't think of any. I was surprised to find no Murlocs or Murghouls in the Eye. I assume that the Naga slay any Murlocs they find here, or that the dim creatures are sharp enough to steer clear of this place, unlike some dwarven adventurers I could name. As for Murghoul, perhaps the Naga consider their capital too sacred to allow their slaves access. I was going to say, in Warcraft 3, they used the Murlocs, and as we see in BFA, there are Murlocs down there. And Murghoul. Geography. On the surface, the Eye is a vast arcane storm swirling with magical power. The Maelstrom creates a vortex below it, forming a massive whirlpool that leads into the depths of the Eye. The Maelstrom also creates a wall of swirling water, nearly impassable beneath the surface. Accessing the Eye is no mean trick. The ocean floor is volcanic. Undersea volcanoes belch magma and steam into the water. Thermal vents release strange gases which manifest as large bubbles that rise toward the surface. Natural life thrives around these vents, devouring the nutrients released from the world's core. Seaweed fish and more bizarre creatures, pale eyeless worms and spider-like crabs with eyes on stalks, among others, appear in profusion. Indeed, I saw more forms of life in the Eye than I imagined existed in all the world. I saw creatures that defied categorization. They seem more like alien organisms from other planes than simply animals native to Azeroth. I've tried to recreate some in oil paints. They're included in Appendix 17. I wonder if he's seeing some of these old god minions that we see. In addition to these fascinating and harmless creatures, the Eye is home to water elementals, octopi, sharks, hydras, threshodons, frenzies, and giant squid. I dared not bring my blunderbuss beneath the waves. Battling these creatures as well as Naga and Makrua patrols underwater in the dark with just my axe was an eerie experience. Alright, so here's some of the places. The Boiling Terrace. Thermal activity is at its peak here. Numerous vents, volcanoes, fissures, and similar features make this water seethe with heat. It's even boiling in places, which gives it its name. I quaffed a potion to protect me from the heat. Even though the scalding waters didn't bother me, I still did not have an easy time. Enormous gas bubbles, steam, and shimmering water limit visibility. The only creatures that can survive here are those that can tolerate great heat, giant crabs and the like. The Boiling Terrace is in the southeast reaches of the Eye. The Rift. At the end of the War of the Ancients, the powers released in the Well of Eternity blasted the well downward, smashing through seawater and rock, driving it into Azeroth's molten core. 10,000 years later, that core is still exposed. The well's descent broke an enormous fissure in the ocean floor, and red and orange light are visible deep, deep down. I couldn't delve too far into the rift, for the pressure is incredible. Even with magic enchantments, it was too much for me, though the Naga seemed to handle it with few problems. The well's descent also destabilized the seafloor for miles around, causing the thermal activity that characterizes the region to this day. If not for the sun, during this area of the sea would be chill, perhaps colder than Northrend, cold enough to freeze the blood of dwarves. Now the seawater, even near the surface, is pleasantly warm, increasing to uncomfortable, dangerous, and even lethal heat in places. Perhaps the Well of Eternity still exists in some form in Azeroth's heart, for arcane currents emanate from the rift. Millennia of exposure to this power warped the Kaldorei Highborn into the Naga. Nazjatar is constructed into the rift's sides. More on this frightening place below. Skintle Reef. This miles-long coral reef sweeps around the southwest perimeter of the eye. Makrura activity here keeps the Naga at bay. The Makrura capital of Makaru is within. So let's discuss these sites and settlements. The eye is the Naga's domain. Strange plant and animal life is also abundant. And I think some of these places are, and I always have a hard time remembering the name of the, when you do Cataclysm, there are the 4 zones that open up, like the Twilight Highlands and Ulduar and Uldum, or not Ulduar, Deepholm and Uldum, and the one that's all water, and I can't remember, Valshara maybe is what it's called. I can't remember what it's. I can never remember what it's called. But I think some of these areas, like the Drowned Reaches, they might be from that. Located on the southeastern edge of the Boiling Terrace, the Drowned Reaches is a great ship's graveyard. Since 10,000 years ago, ships that run afoul of the Maelstrom are caught in its whirlpool and sucked downward in the currents, rip them asunder and deposit their remains here. Because the sailors die in fear and agony and are surrounded by the Maelstrom's unstable influence, the dead often do not find peace. The zombified and skeletal remains of these unfortunates wander the Boiling Terrace, raging at their fate. The Naga fear the undead and avoid this area. So far, they've managed to avoid outright conflict with the millennia-strong drowned men and women. Gishan Caverns. North of the rift is a series of enormous caverns in the seafloor. Volcanic activity is responsible for these caverns, and the Naga avoid them. They believe that gargantuan sea creatures dwell within. I poked around a bit, but didn't go in too deep. I had to get back to Ironforge after all, and anything nasty enough to intimidate the Naga on their home turf was enough to make me cautious. Makaru is a metropolis, unknown population maybe 30,000, so about a third as many as there are Naga, or maybe, about half as many. Makaru is the capital of the Makrura civilization. It is built into the Skintol Reef, and the buildings and other structures appear almost organic. The city is built on a series of coral terraces, and the layout protects the Makrura's egg clutches. Makrura guards range from Makaru throughout the Skintol Reef, which they consider their territory. The lobster-like Makrura hate the Naga and are their chief enemy. There is potential here. The Makrura don't take kindly to outsiders of any kind, but their war with the Naga, which has been going on for who knows how long, makes them potential allies. They're protective of their homeland, but perhaps, if skilled diplomats approach some of their people near the shores, we could maneuver our way into a meeting with their mysterious leaders. Then we could explain to the Makrura that we have common goals. Certainly the Makrura would be valuable companions given their physical and magical prowess and their skills underwater. It'd be nice to bring the fight to the Naga in their own element. Pillar Deep. Located toward the northeast, Pillar Deep is a terraced area with many thermal vents releasing steam and gas bubbles. As I swam toward it, I saw that there were hundreds, perhaps thousands of enormous stone columns stretching toward the surface. Intrigued, I approached the pillars and was nearly shocked out of my leather undies when one of them moved. They're not columns at all, they're colossal tube worms, grown to gigantism on the acetic gas from the volcanic fissures. Innumerable smaller worms inhabit this area as well. Here's Najatar, so this is a large community. And they give all their stats and all their skills, feats. It's a monarchy run by Queen Ajara, and that's Naga-based. Built into the walls of the rift is the Naga capital, Najatar. This is the seat of their hideous empire, and it is an eerie and frightening place. The building's foundations merge with the walls of the rift, though the structures themselves are oriented vertically as normal, not horizontally where their foundations are on the walls. Naga swim among the buildings, conducting their nefarious plans. Much of Najatar was once a Kalderai city, and the ruins and architecture remain. However, the Naga have added a good amount of their own art to this place, dredging building material from coral and rock and the fallen ruins of their former civilization. The place has a dark and sinister atmosphere. The building's colors are muted, usually tan or gray, and bear carvings of waves, seahorses, fish, and more disturbing motifs. Powerful Naga warriors and mages battling the Makrura, enslaving the Murghul, and returning to the surface to exact revenge on their ancient kin. Moving around in the city was a harrowing time. I slugged all my invisibility potions over the course of my exploration, and despite this precaution, the Naga nearly had me several times. Their spellcasters are canny and can see through such simple illusions. As a rogue, I just hate that little blue circle. Queen Ajara, grown massive in size and in power, dwells in a great palace in Najtar's center. This structure was her palace in the Kaldarai civilization 10,000 years ago as well. I didn't want to test my luck, so I left the city without trying for a glance at the potent queen. If rumors and my intuition are to be believed, Ajara is one of the most powerful beings on Azeroth, rivaled perhaps only by the Lich King. Speaking of which, while the Naga are despicable and evil, they are not allies of the Scourge, and are a powerful force. If only there was some way to play the two against each other. History. The Eye was once the Kaldarai capital of Zin-Ajari, which means glory of Ajara. It played a key role in the War of the Ancients, for it was the site of the Well of Eternity and the Burning Legion's first invasion of Azeroth. With the Sundering, Zin-Ajari shattered and sank. Its ruins are now scattered throughout the Eye. For as long as the eastern and western continents have existed, the Maelstrom has made sea travel between the two difficult. Both the Horde and the Alliance had lost numerous ships to the drowned reaches during the exodus to Kalimdor. In addition, during Thrall's expedition, he was shipwrecked on one lone island somewhere in the South Seas. I do not know exactly where, but it must have been close to the Maelstrom. It was here that he met the Darkspear trolls and saved them from zealous Murlocs, thereby enlisting them as members of the Horde. Adventures. Naga civilization is ancient, evil, and steeped in arcane mystery. The Eye holds other secrets as well. Here's a quest called Queen Napped. In a desperate gamble, the Alliance outfits hundreds of their best and brightest with magic and technological items necessary to survive underwater. With the help of allied Makrua, they stage an attack on Najtar. However, the attack is simply a distraction in order to allow a small group of adventurers to enter the city, steal into the palace, overcome Queen Ajara's defenses, capture her, and return to the surface. The Alliance plans to either siphon the captured queen's arcane powers, or use her to enlist the help of the Naga against the Scourge. Without chance, there's no way they're going in there. I think your adventure hook could be blasted apart and completely change when you realize just how powerful Ajara is. Okay, everyone, thank you. As always, we have another episode in the pipe 5x5, and I greatly appreciate your views, your listens, your comments, and I hope we just keep getting better and getting further every day. Look forward to seeing everyone next time on your favorite YouTube show, Lore of Warcraft.